history has been made, and it has been written on the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. A safe return, a homecoming unlike any other. Exactly at 3:27 a.m. IST, Indian Standard Time, after spending 286 days in the abyss of space, through trials and endurance, the boundless void of the cosmos, NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore splashed down victorious, unbroken, and back where they actually belong, which is the planet Earth. A celestial journey culminating in the embrace of Earth's waters, the crew Dragon Freedom bobbing gently like a victorious warrior returning from a war. And the parachutes, those grand white wings that carried them through the final moments, have done their duty perfectly. And the capsule, which was battle-born from the inferno of re-entry, sat proud on the waves. And inside there were souls who defied time, who stared into the endless night of space, and are now breathing the fresh air of Earth after nearly a year.
And we are expecting Drogue deployment at 2:53 p.m. Pacific, so we should see it any second now. And there you are getting a great view of Crew 9 inside Dragon Freedom as it returns back to Earth. We are awaiting the Drogue deploys. This view coming from the WB-57 high altitude plane. And there you see it on your screen, Drogue deployment.
Drogue descent rate nominal.
You can hear the crowd here.
Visual on 2 healthy drogues.
The crowd here very excited as Dragon Freedom continues to make its way back to planet Earth.
Next up, we'll stand by for the main deployment of the parachutes. The mains are quite a bit larger. You'll be able to notice the difference on your screen once they deploy, and they continue to ensure that the Dragon spacecraft slows down even further. As we mentioned, Freedom will be traveling 16 miles per hour when it splashes down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida, here at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time this afternoon. And there we go.
We have visual on 4 healthy mains.
That view was from inside.
Freedom copy.
That view was from inside one of the buckets where the parachutes are located. So we see a great view there of the reefing on those parachutes. And as those main parachutes begin to inflate fully, 4 beautiful, healthy mains. Now awaiting visuals of Splashdown.
Freedom, 1,000.
We'll start to hear Commander Nick Hague.
Copy, 1,000.
As we heard right there, Commander Nick Hague will be calling out the altitude of the Dragon capsule from here on out. Landing in water is simpler and provides more margin against unlikely parachute issues. You can see those parachutes continuing to slow the Dragon capsule down.
And if you're just joining us, you're looking at
800 meters.
a live view of Crew 9. Just minutes away from splashing down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Splashdown 2 minutes from now at 2:57 p.m. Pacific. We do have 4 healthy mains really doing the job there. Just breathtaking views of a calm, glass-like ocean off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Crew 9 just minutes away from splashing down.
This is really such an incredible shot.
Copy, 600.
That was a live view from our recovery vessel, Megan, which is stationed a couple miles away from the splashdown site. We can see the crew there using their restraints as resting places for their arms. They were just in space moments ago, so their arms were able to float freely.
400 meters.
This is a gorgeous bluebird day here that we have for the splashdown of Crew 9. It's incredible to think that the Dragon capsule just minutes ago was going over 17,000 miles per hour, and now gently coasting to a soft splashdown.
200.
Copy, 200 meters. Brace for splashdown.
As you can see there on your screen, continuing to monitor progress of the Dragon spacecraft. And we're going to stand by for splashdown, located in the Gulf of America, off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida.
And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
And SpaceX Freedom, splashdown. Good main release.
Copy splashdown. We see main chutes cut. Nick, Alex, Butch, Sunny, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
Well, welcome home to all of them, but it was something that was never meant to be a 9-month-long odyssey in the first place. It was meant to be a short stay, an in-and-out mission aboard Boeing Starliner. But fate had other plans. A spacecraft that wasn't ready, a decision that changed everything. And instead of waiting, instead of wondering, Sunita and Butch adapted, they worked, and they became part of the ISS family, making and marking every single moment that they have counted with 900 plus hours of research, with over 150 experiments that have been conducted, spacewalks that push the limits of human endurance. And around 3:27 a.m. Indian Standard Time this morning, the moment where Earth's gravity reclaimed its own, where the astronauts felt the pull of home, not just beneath their feet, but in their hearts as well. And the astronauts were also welcomed by dolphins. There are a pod of dolphins that were also seen swimming around the capsule that was later retrieved by the recovery vessel. It seems that they wanted to say hi, welcome back to the astronauts too.
You can see some harnessing being placed around the capsule. This harnessing is what will be used to lift the Dragon capsule out of the water and onto the recovery vessel. Wow, we got a cute little pod of dolphins. It wasn't just one or two. You can see some harnessing being placed around the capsule. This harnessing is what will be used to lift the Dragon capsule out of the water and onto the recovery vessel. Wow, we got a cute little pod of dolphins. It wasn't just one or two. You can see some harnessing being placed around the capsule. This harnessing is what will be used to lift the Dragon capsule out of the water and onto the recovery vessel. Wow, we got a cute little pod of dolphins. It wasn't just one or two. You can see some harnessing being placed around the capsule. This harnessing is what will be used to lift the Dragon capsule out of the water and onto the recovery vessel. Wow, we got a cute little pod of dolphins. It wasn't just one or two.
So after splashdown, it was counting down the minutes. Exactly at 4:15 a.m., after the planned recovery operations, the entire crew of 4 NASA astronauts, Sunita Williams, Butch Wilmore, Nick Hague, along with the Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, began emerging from the Dragon Freedom capsule one by one. So the first to come out was Nick Hague, who was the commander of the Crew 9 capsule. He waved to the camera, smiling, showing off the victory sign. Next to emerge out of the capsule was Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov, and 4:22 a.m. was the time when we saw the first visuals of Sunita Williams coming out, smiling as always, waving at the cameras, looking lively as ever. And the last to egress was Butch Wilmore. All of us who have been continuously glued to our sets, and of course this is something that we showed you in our overnight coverage, watching these astronauts script an indelible chapter when it comes to space history.
We are standing by for the next crew member to egress or exit Crew Dragon Freedom following the splashdown not even an hour ago at 2:57 p.m. Pacific time. Really have the recovery operations down pretty quick at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to think that, just 5 years ago when we were doing the initial demonstration missions of the Dragon for Crew Dragon, that now we're under about 30 minutes for, to retrieve the spacecraft from the water, and just several minutes here while it's been on board, and to get everyone, really to get that side hatch open. For those of you that have just recently joined, the Dragon had an on-time splashdown. Looks like we're getting our next crew member here. That is none other than Sunny Williams. Big smile, big waves. She, like her other crew members, now will be assisted onto the mobility aid.
There we have it, some waves, some thumbs up, and some smiles.
Definitely seems to be a theme among all recovery operations.
Absolutely. And of course, that leaves NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore inside Dragon in seat 4. We're getting some views of him now as he egresses or exits the spacecraft.
Once again, some elation and cheers there from Butch Wilmore. As we mentioned before, returning to Earth coming from a microgravity environment can wreak havoc on the body. So it is customary and just standard procedure for all of our long-term space residents to get assistance once they are back on board the recovery vessel.
So let's quickly introduce our esteemed panelists joining us here on the broadcast. Good morning to all of you. Michael Gold, Chief Growth Officer, Redwire Space. Sanjay Lakshminarayana, Development Engineer for European Rocket Company and researcher for reusable rockets and human space flight. Suresh Naik, who is the former Group Director from ISRO. Jijit Ravi, the former scientist at ISRO, who was also part of many GSLV launches, and Chandrayaan as well. Let's get in a word from Mr. Gold. Thank you very much for taking out your time. What do you have to say? What happens from here on? Of course, this is a historic moment that we have all witnessed today, and we've been up all night because it was 3:27 a.m. when we witnessed the splashdown here in India. And the NASA astronauts, what happens from here on, Mr. Gold, because when it comes to their rehabilitation intensive program, that will help their body to readjust to gravity. If you can tell us about that.
Well, good evening from DC and good morning to all of your viewers. I know it's during the day, but I hope you can all get some sleep now tonight, not worry anymore about our astronauts. And by the way, this was a victory of the public-private partnerships of NASA working with the private sector so we could rescue our astronauts. And what they've got ahead of them is a probably non-trivial recovery period. As you noted, microgravity has effects on the muscles, even on the lungs and the heart. And while it was certainly unplanned for these astronauts to spend the time that they did in space, every time we have these long duration missions, we learn more. And what they go through will teach us important lessons because we're not stopping at low Earth orbit. We're going to the moon, we're going to Mars, and then we'll have missions that will last years. So this astronaut's mission actually didn't end. They're going to continue to provide us with great data, great science, and great information as they recover from this long duration mission.
Absolutely. And that's the point, exactly what happens from here on, Mr. Naik, because even if we speak of Sunita Williams, who has cemented her legacy by spending incredible 608 days in space, making her the second most experienced NASA astronaut in terms of total time that has been spent beyond Earth. What do you make of her legacy? And of course, this is historic, the moment that we all witnessed.
Well, I think it is a great moment. Welcome back to all the astronauts. And we must appreciate and thank Elon Musk and NASA for this great job they have done. Well, what separates it from the earlier long-term missions, because in fact, there have been longer-term missions before, I think 600 hours and all that. But this mission is very special because originally it was scheduled for 9 days and it went on for 9 months. So you see, these astronauts are all psychologically prepared, mentally prepared for a short stay in space and come back. And when it gets delayed by so many months, naturally they had to bring out the endurance power, the reserves, and they had to face this kind of uncertainty and the actually the all technological challenges and also the other challenges. For example, when the astronaut is there for a long 9 months in space, as I earlier said, microgravity affects them in various ways. As far as the physiological changes are concerned, their muscles, they get weakened because they have no work to do, much work to do, as well as, their back and the leg muscles particularly, they get affected because these are the load-bearing muscles in the body. Secondly, the bones also get weakened because there is less work to do, so the calcium diminishes in the body, and that is why the weakness sets in. Similarly, heart, it was mentioned earlier, it has to pump in a lesser amount of blood, so its efficiency goes down, its size goes down, and all these problems, they have to get adjusted when they come back to Earth. For example, another problem which they face is fluids in the body. Because of the microgravity, the fluids tend to flow upwards in the body. The cheeks become fluffy, and when they come back to Earth, then this readjustment of the fluids that causes dizziness in them, and that also should be a part of rehabilitation program to correct it and help the astronauts. So all this part of their rehabilitation program.
And it's going to be an intensive one, when it comes to making them familiarized, when it comes to walking and other therapy and all the sessions as well, of course, when it comes to the other astronauts as well. But Mr. Lakshmi Narayana, if you can tell us about how that spacecraft that faced extreme temperatures exceeding over 1650 degrees Celsius before, deploying the parachutes and gently touching down on the waters there. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful to watch at a distance. But from an astronaut's perspective, if you can tell us about the view from the window during the re-entry is nothing but a wall of fire that they would have witnessed.
I don't know if they could see so much, but of course, yes, the plasma is outside during the re-entry at such high speeds, and the friction that that is created with the airflow and the heat shield that is burning continuously and evaporating partly. Therefore, however, it was a textbook, re-entry. There was no problem. Everything worked on time, and it's a very good, the best coverage to teach for students in the schools, I would say.
So, from the Christmas to elections to gardening, everything that they did to keep themselves busy up in space. But Jijit, when we talk about the Crew 9 astronauts, the contributions that they have also played a very crucial role when it comes to advancing the scientific research and space exploration. What can you emphasize, especially on the work that has now been done by NASA astronauts, that just not benefits the space community, but to the entire world?
Yeah, yes. So most of us are focused on the number of days they have spent from 9 days to 9 months, but a lot of scientific experimentation and a lot of data collection that Sunita Williams and team has done. So one is there is a lot of studies related to plant growth, and then there is a lot of studies about these reactor experiments like packed bed reactor experiments and microalgae research. Then there is a very interesting fire behavior in the space. So all these studies were going on in the we were all worried about Sunita's return, but these are all a lot of successful studies and also very very valuable data, which is like these kind of experiments can only be done in space. So as far as these are concerned, the scientific community is enriched by all these new studies that has been happening, and that is the main purpose of this particular mission. And when it is expanded from 8 days to 9 months, that it is done to the perfection, I would say. And some of the very interesting things like protein crystal growth, this will be definitely helpful in multiple domains, including the medicine and various other domains. Even also, it's useful for the space. This information, these studies can return back to the space, enhancing the space technology and the experience of the astronauts in future. So a lot of things like fluid physics, many studies related to plant growth and protein crystal growth. So it's a huge amount of information that we have got. So maybe after all this excitement settle down, we will be maybe focusing more on that experiments.
To build up on that excitement itself was a great deal in itself, isn't it, Mr. Gold? Because there were so many delays, and every time that we thought that, okay, this is a moment that they could finally return, the mission was delayed. Something or the other kept on happening. But now with that ultimate return that has now been witnessed, do you believe that increases the likelihood that NASA will achieve its goal on landing a human on Mars by the end of the decade? Or, we've seen the preparation, the ingenuity and the dedication that has now grown when it comes to bringing all of them together for the benefit of humanity and pushing the boundaries of what is possible from low Earth orbit to the moon and to the Mars.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have delays in the space industry. We just have opportunities. And this was a wonderful example of that, where we took what was otherwise a difficult situation and was just mentioned, learned so much from it, that when we go to the moon, it's going to be long durations in orbit. And that's why these operations on the ISS and the International Space Station are so important. And if I can just add to the progress that was made scientifically, while microgravity is very difficult for the human body, it is a panacea. It is a miracle for science and biological research. The work that went on during this mission, I believe, will not only revolutionize what we do in space, but revolutionize biotech. My company, Redwire, has 10 payloads on the International Space Station. During this time, we have a system called the Biofabrication Facility that we use to print live cardiovascular tissue on the International Space Station and brought it back live. This will allow us to create heart patches for people with heart disease. We printed a human meniscus, which is a muscle in the knee. And we also flew during this 9 months, probably about an additional 10 or 11 pillboxes, which are experiments to take drugs into space, create new seed crystals, and then those will create new pharmaceuticals for here on Earth. So not only will this help us go to the moon, but it's going to improve life here on Earth as well, due to the incredible scientific advances that Redwire and NASA are doing.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your insight and for your perspective. And throughout the mission as well, Crew 9 has contributed to a host of science and also maintenance activities. And of course, when it comes to technology demonstrations as well, we are all happy to welcome back the astronauts. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining in. With that, we head into a short break.